Joining me now is Elie Honig, of course, a former federal and state prosecutor. He's also a legal analyst on CNN. Elie, thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Wyatt. I think this is so cool that you do this. You're an accomplished young kid. I have two kids that are 18 and 16. Neither of them is yet a successful podcaster and media figure like you are. So it's very cool that you do this. And I was happy to say yes when you reach out and ask me to join you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I kind of want to start out with obviously the big legal news that also kind of connects to the political news. As of recently, it seems is always in connection to former President Donald Trump. So I do want to ask you about one of these setbacks that is kind of recent to the news cycle now, involving his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows.
Right.
Essentially, what happened was a judge ruled that he cannot move his election case from Georgia into federal court. And perhaps this speaks to the idea that not only Donald Trump is being affected by some of these actions, but also people who were close to him within his administration. Legally speaking, what kind of setbacks might this mean for the former president as he now advances forward to his 2024 campaign?
Great question. So Mark Meadows lost his motion, as you referred to take his case out of state court over to federal court, right? So there's a lot of indictments here. It's a lot to keep in mind, but the one we're talking about was brought by a state level prosecutor, the Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, the Fulton County District Attorney in Georgia. That case, the DA charged Donald Trump plus 18 others, including Mark Meadows. Now, there's a law here in the United States. You're in Canada, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. But you seem to know our system better than a lot of people here do. There's a law in the United States that says if somebody gets charged with state crimes, but it relates to their job as a federal official. Mark Meadows was chief of staff in the White House. Then you can get your case moved over to federal court. Now, why would you want to do that, right? What's the difference, state or federal court? The answer is you would probably be drawing your jury from a more conservative, a wider, more conservative, slightly more favorable to Trump jury pool in the federal system. You probably would end up with a more conservative appeals court. And once you get into federal court, if you're Mark Meadows, you have a very good chance to get your case dismissed because you can't charge a federal official for something they did in the course of their job. You can't charge that person with a crime. Now, Mark Meadows lost. Like you said, the judge came out with a ruling on Friday. Meadows is going to appeal. He's going to appeal to the Intermediate Court of Appeals and then probably try to get the U.S. Supreme Court to take it if he doesn't succeed. But yeah, it does not bode well for Donald Trump because basically what the judge said is, I find that Mark Meadows was not acting as White House chief of staff. He was acting as a political operative for Donald Trump. He was acting in his personal capacity. Therefore, he's not protected. Trump's going to have a little bit of a different argument because he's going to say, well, as president, I had the broadest of all executive branch jobs. But so Trump could theoretically still win his motion. He hasn't made it yet. But I think it's a bad sign for Trump.
And as of right now, I mean, the messaging coming from the Trump campaign, some of those people who are close to the former president, is that it's benefiting their campaign. But I mean, from someone kind of from the outside looking into this, it would seem as if, as he advances into some of the primary elections, like some of these legal obligations could potentially begin to actually have an impact on him. How much could the kind of, 9 to 5 court action actually hurt his political campaign, given that he's going to have to be in the courtroom so much, and furthermore, someone yourself who's a lot more experienced in the legal system, what's actually going to be going on for Donald Trump as his competitors are on the campaign trail?
So there's no question that Donald Trump has raised an awful lot of money off of his indictments, which, by the way, as unseemly as that may be, you're allowed to do that. There's nothing inherently wrong or illegal about that. From what I gleaned from my political colleagues at CNN and various experts who've come through, it may be helping or at least not hurting Donald Trump, these indictments in the Republican primary, because Trump's base is Trump's base, and he's trying to rally support around the notion that he's being unfairly prosecuted, or as he puts it, persecuted. I think the bigger question is, he was way ahead of the Republican field anyway. The bigger question to me, and I think you were alluding to this, Wyatt, is how does it play in a general election? Clearly, there's large proportions of this population that will always vote for Trump and never vote for Trump. But how is this going to play in the middle? I do think the majority of those middle voters will probably look at this as, is it really a good idea to elect somebody who's got multiple indictments and maybe will even have been convicted by then if we get a trial in? But I also do think there's maybe a smaller group that thinks that this has become a bit of a political pile on by prosecutors, bringing sort of, in some instances, redundant charges. You raise a good point about how is this going to actually impact the campaign on a practical level. When you are a criminal defendant in the United States, you have to physically be present at your trial. You may remember Donald Trump had a trial, a civil case with E. Jean Carroll a few months ago. He didn't go. He no-showed. Now, that's not a great idea. The jury's not going to like that, but you're allowed to skip your own civil trial. You cannot skip your own criminal trial. So for as long as he's on trial, and it looks like he could be on trial for several months, right in the spring and summer of 2024, he's off the campaign trail physically. But I guess I would also raise the question, if he's getting daily blanket media coverage and every camera is following him in and out of the courtroom every day, is that better or worse than the traditional stump, shaking hands and going into diners and having rallies? I don't know. This is we like to say that a lot of this is unprecedented here in the United States, and it really is. I think it's actually okay to say we don't know some of the time. So politically, I can see it playing either way or both ways, but it's going to be really interesting to watch that.
And I mean, some of the people that were close to him, I'm thinking people like Jenna Ellis, who is one of his obviously very close advisors. There are some people that were close to him who he isn't willing to pay their legal fees. They're having a hard time paying their own legal fees. To what extent in kind of the court system and in the criminal system, when there is a defendant that have, close advisors to them, do you perhaps see advisors kind of steer away from them because of, a battle over some of these legal fees like we're seeing here now?
So again, another really good question. I actually write about, I feel proud that I wrote a full chapter in my book, my second book that came out earlier this year, about exactly this phenomenon. It is very common, way more common than people realize. When you have a big indictment with a powerful boss up top, I used to do mafia cases, but in this case, a political organization, even a corporation, it's very, very common for either the corporation itself or the boss to pay for legal fees for a lot of the people who are around that person, because it keeps that person, it keeps that person from cooperating. It doesn't automatically prohibit them, but imagine you and I got charged together, and I said, I'm going to pay for your lawyer. You would be very hesitant to tell your lawyer, hey, I want to flip against the guy who's paying for you. And if you did, you would lose the lawyer, right? I would stop paying for him, and you would have to pay for your own lawyer, which is very expensive. So it's common. It's not necessarily nefarious. A lot of times people want to have their lawyers paid for. But Trump has made a habit of that, and it has helped to protect him. But as you say, in this case, he's apparently not paying the legal bills. He has no obligation to pay anyone's legal bills, of course, but he's not paying the legal bills for Jenna Ellis and several others. And he has apparently made the calculation of, it's not worth it. I don't want to. I don't fear them as a cooperator. I don't fear them cooperating. Or maybe he's just run out of money. I don't know. He's got a lot of co-defendants now.
All right, we'll leave it there. That's Elie Honig, of course, a very popular legal analyst on CNN and a former prosecutor. Thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Wyatt. Great talking to you. Good luck with the show.